The arrival of the Enterprise changes things, as Krug is beamed up. His ship closes in cloaked, but Enterprise happens across them and takes him down before they can get a shot off, killing Krug's Hellhound. However, this victory is short-lived, as Scotty's jury-rigged automation wasn't put together with combat in mind, a point I applaud the movie for making sense. If it was so simple for 5 guys to run a ship, is there really a need for all those extra people except to die? Krug counterattacks, and without the ability to raise shields, Enterprise is crippled. Kirk tries to bluff Krug into surrendering anyway, but this isn't some ugly midget hiding behind a little green puppet, so he instead raises the stakes by mentioning his hostages, and to prove he's serious, plans to kill one. But David jumps in when the Klingon is about to attack Saavik. Saavik shows her appreciation by, well, standing there and watching the Klingon overpower and stab him to death. Thanks a lot, lady. The death of David Marcus is, in my opinion, the worst misstep of the film. First, because it's coming not long before something far more significant in the film, and because its impact is so trivial. Shatner is the one who did the most with it, by reacting to the news by stumbling back and falling to the floor, to show how hard it has hit him. As an actor, he captures the significance of the event far more than the script itself does. Indeed, we now have to wait 7 years before that fact is ever going to provide any relevance to his character. The estranged son that he finally was able to reconcile and bond with so recently, now dead. And it provides nothing to the story, other than one more tick box on the list of things that Kirk has lost later on. If you want to get the audience to care about the hero, hurt him, yes. But you cannot simply throw a tragedy on him, have him react, and then proceed to walk it off. That's just silly. The death of Khan's followers affected him more than Kirk is affected by the death of his own son. Now how does that make any sense? In my opinion, after all, that's what the title says, right? There should have been 2 themes running through this film, both on the subject of rebirth. Spock's is literal, of course. The other should have been Kirk's. Kirk has been through a hell of a time with Khan, and then watched his friend die. He's been held back by bureaucrats from trying to make it right, arrives to have his ship destroyed, and his son murdered. Kirk is reborn by proving that he is the anti-Khan, that even though he is left stranded in a hostile environment, his ship lost, his son lost, his career over, as much as it pushes him to his limits, he struggles and overcomes them. For him, the journey would matter. Remember, this is called the search for Spock, when really, there's no search. We will search everywhere until we find him. Isn't he on Genesis? Yes! Oh, well, that was easy. You've got this hostile and unstable Genesis planet. Put Kirk on it. Make it a true search, and on the journey, Kirk would be reborn by recovering from what has happened with the best of his humanity rather than the worst as Khan had. A return from death to life, a man losing all he has, those are all elements of epics. But Star Trek III feels very small and very average. Krug offers threats of further violence, so Kirk agrees to surrender. With the Klingons planning to board, Kirk decides that the only option is to blow up the Enterprise with the Klingons on board. So they all gather around and enter their blow up the Enterprise passcodes. They're pretty simple, like Kirk's is 1-1A. But then the last thing you want in a crisis is to struggle to remember your password. Oh crap, is it 42J or 42K? Was that for something? Can I just have the security question? My pet rabbit's name was Mr. Snookums. In my opinion, this is the film's second worst misstep. David's death is Kirk's harshest moment, but this is the harshest for the fans. The Enterprise that they have loved for so long is destroyed, almost as close a possible blow as the death of Spock himself. However, the event isn't given anywhere near the same significance. One thing Nicholas Meyer would continually say regarding Star Trek II, when the comment would come up that you couldn't kill Spock, sure you can. The only question is whether or not you do it well. If his death proceeds organically from the theme and the story of the movie, then nobody's even going to notice it until it's on you, and no one will question it. That doesn't happen here. Indeed, once the scene has passed, it has no more significance other than the fact that they need another way off the planet. Considering that the last 2 films have shown us Kirk's need to sit in the seat of the Enterprise and then blows it up, it sure seems insignificant. Not to mention the fact that this painfully plays against what the audience has been wanting to see ever since we were told that the Enterprise was too old to be worth refitting. We wanted to see that guy with egg on his face for that. Which is probably why what's considered the most memorable scene of the film is the Enterprise escaping from space dock in the Excelsior, that the plucky old girl isn't ready to be put out to pasture yet. Instead, what we get is the grim realization that the commander was right, that not only should she have been put out to pasture, but now it's time to put her down like she'd broken her leg or something. It doesn't grow from the theme at all, and it doesn't carry the heavy gravitas that it should. So they beam themselves down to Genesis while almost all the Klingons beam over, and we get probably the most unintentionally hilarious moment of the film.
Get out! Get out of there!
So the ship self-destructs, and given that the engine and the fuel are all in the lower area, naturally it's the saucer that explodes. It may look like the bottom blows up, but as you can see, it's barely charred. They look on, then begin the search for Spock, and, well, that didn't take long, did it? The 2 Klingon guards are quickly eliminated, leaving just Krug and John Larroquette up on the ship. They check Spock over. He's aged up appropriately, but his mind is a void, meaning it'll be much easier to dump his Katra back in. They won't wind up wiping some other personality away. Lucky thing, because we're running out of movie. With no way to leave except the orbiting bird of prey, Kirk contacts Krug with an offer for Genesis, but he wants them all beamed up. Krug mostly agrees.
You should take the Vulcan too.
No!
But why?
Because you wish it!
Ah, Klingons. No need for pretense, is there? The self-destructing planet then sets up the fight. Quite literally, in fact, since a boulder rises up under Krug, allowing him to leap at Kirk. They struggle until Kirk knees Krug in the balls, and they head over the side of a cliff. As they prepare for the final struggle, Kirk, inflamed with the thought of his son now dead and his ship that has delivered him so many times from death now destroyed, says,
I have had enough of you!
Fiery, personal words said straight from the heart. So Kirk grabs Spock and tricks the last Klingon into beaming them up. Even he realizes he's too dumb to live for that.
I do not deserve to live.
So they escape and John Larroquette's locked away. We then get what is the only successful verbal repetition in this film, with Bones over the mindless body of Spock.
You stuck this damn thing in my head, remember? Remember?
The line, perfectly natural, yet at the same time calling back to the world that had started this when Spock melded in the first place. So kudos for that. They arrive on Vulcan, where we get a wonderful combination of cold Vulcan logic and that other Vulcan trait, incredible silliness. Someone's blown an alpenhorn, and then they have to bring Spock up this massive number of steps to get to a giant saucer full of sugar cubes, where men in skirts hold pikes, this guy beats a gong, and a trio of women signaling a left turn. When the High Priest lady questions Sarek's logic, your jaw just drops open. Lady, you do not get to use the word logic while standing in the middle of a garish Vegas stage production. Sarek says he wants to do an ancient mythical procedure to restore Spock's Katra with his body, and luckily enough, they've brought an extra platform for Bones to lay on, just in case. So she touches McCoy's head and places the holy ring pop on Spock's head. Yo, 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 yo. And with the dissolve, it's all over. You'll want to stay off your feet and drink plenty of liquids, but otherwise, rising from the dead can be handled on an outpatient basis. Being highly logical, the old lady is then put in a sedan chair and carried off, presumably to go hit the nickel slots. Sarek then thanks Kirk, pointing out all that he has lost, but Kirk says that he had to do it or lose his soul. That's fine, but honestly it never felt that way throughout the film. It never seems that any of the prices really hang on Kirk. They just seem to wash right off him. In fact, the way he says it, it's hard for it not to almost seem selfish. Yeah, others paid the price, but if not, I'd be kind of bummed. This sets up the bridge to the next chapter as Spock returns, confused, not remembering things properly. He's uncertain why Kirk and company would do what they did, and he inverts Spock's comments from the beginning. The needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. This triggers Spock the recollection of the events that followed, repeating the lines.
Ship. Out of danger. You saved the ship.
Then I blew it up. Thanks! Spock then remembers who Jim is, and it's clear that he has definitely returned, and the promise is made that the adventure would continue. Follow-up. Annoying character is awarded to Mr. Adventure. No dancing for you. We have Kirk Pie, I guess, in the self-destruction of the Enterprise. We most definitely have a Lazarus of the Week for Spock, who was killed by radiation but came back as a result of Vulcan mysticism and Planet Frankenstein. Final score for Star Trek III: The Search for Spock is 6 out of 10, an average score for an average film. The primary failure of it is its lack of ambition and inability to fully realize the significance of its own events. It had all the elements to surpass Wrath of Khan, but it didn't take advantage of them.
Bridge, this is the captain. How can you have a yellow alert in space dock?